What's going on, Tim? How you doing, bro?
What it do? What it do, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, it's Wednesday night at the time that we were streaming this live recording. I'd like to thank all of our listeners out there and welcome to another episode of Running Through the Jungle podcast. I'm your host, Justin Lacey here, joining you with Tim Lyons as well, too. We got a lot of good things to talk about, man. Well, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. We got a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously, week one was a major debacle. It was an upsetting loss. No matter how you spin it, you can't make any excuses for it. But you know what? We still got to go through that. We also got to talk about week two because, man, look, it's on the Mahomes, man. It's Burrow versus Mahomes, chapter 5. So we're going to get into all of that as well too. But first and foremost, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Please sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ding that post notification bell so that way you'll be notified when we go live, or even just put up content in general. We're doing more than just giving you just a live stream of the shows. We got Pay Dirt coming from our boy Brandon Harriet and his boy Pay, giving you live betting options and stuff. We got Tim doing his thing. We got me doing our thing. Like, man, just join us, man. Hit us. Get to know us a lot more. There's a
Yes.
lot of things that we can go into this episode, but first and foremost, I need to pay tribute to the soldiers and people that lost their lives. Man, what is it? 13 years ago or 23 years ago?
23.
23
23
years
years.
ago, 9/11 happened on this day. So,
Yeah.
to all of those and all those people that are still feeling the effect of those losses, we honor you, we support you, we salute you, and we thank thee for everything that you've had to endure. But we and God bless you. And God, I'm not sure who all those out there that's religious, but I'm a religious person, and we always say that God bless America because it was a time of tragedy, and I witnessed it live. I think I was 10 years old at the time that happened, and
Hmm.
I remember vividly of where I was during that time, and it brought a lot of tears to people's eyes because it's like, wow, you couldn't believe something like that transpired and happened. But Tim, you are a military veteran, and
Yes.
first and foremost, thank you so much for your service to this country. And I know it's we're not in the best place in this country right now. We're not going to go into the politics because it's got nothing to do with sports. We're not going to any of that. But give me your thoughts and your feelings regarding 9/11, if you may.
It's it was sad to lose. We lost almost 3,000 people on 9/11 in New York. Including like 380 firefighters. We lost people in the Pentagon, in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Um, it was a tragedy. It was the beginning of war for us veterans that were in Iraq and Afghanistan. We lost over 7,000 soldiers over in Afghan and Iraq after all of this. It was sad. It's not something that I don't forget, and that's one thing that I want to make people remember. I know this is not a political show or anything or whatever you believe in, but I want everybody to remember, never forget this time, with 9/11. Never forget Pearl Harbor. Never forget the men and the women, that we lost during all these wars.
Hmm.
One thing I want to part with before we go to our next subject is, and you guys might agree with me, you might not, and I really don't care because I am a patriot at heart. I serve my country. The best way that we can honor the ones that we lost on September 11th is to be the people we were on September 12th. That's all I got to say.
Absolutely. Hey, so what do you recall regarding that day? Do you remember what happened? Like where you were, or were you doing? Were you in active duty around that time? I know you're a little much older
Yeah,
than I am, so.
yeah, I was active duty at the time. I was actually in the Chow Hall. TVs were on, and the next we were like, "What the hell's going on?" News. They turned it all on. We watched the first plane hit the first tower, and then the second one hit the second tower, and then of course the tower, I think it was Tower 2, collapsed, and the
Mhm.
big puff of smoke and dust and everything hit the ground, and it was something that, as American people, I don't think that we believed that it would happen here in our soil,
Yeah,
after Pearl Harbor. Um,
yeah.
but it can happen. It can happen at any time. I was 24, 25 years old when this happened.
Mm.
I do remember after all this happened, and I get a phone call in the middle of the night from Brandon going, what's going on? What's going on? Are you guys going to be shipped off? Or I was like, I don't know. Right now we're on standby. We're just get our stuff together and ready to go. So, it was a tragedy. It was a time that I will never forget, and I don't want anybody else to forget that moment.
Absolutely, man. Especially if you witnessed it live, whether if you were a kid that had active memory like myself at the time, like you can remember the exact time and the moment you were doing, or you were a fully functioning adult such as yourself. It's
Hmm.
very important to remember that day. And for those that serve their country like yourself, or the people that suffered that loss and that tragedy of that day. And I got a chance to visit New York City last month for my birthday weekend, and I did pay
Yeah.
the tribute and paid a visit to the memorial site of 9/11. And it's some powerful stuff, man. It's one of the things that when you see it there in general, it's just like, man, I can't believe that this actually happened here. It's one
Hmm.
thing to, like visit stuff that was like historical landmarks like
Yeah.
Philadelphia, for example, very historical landmark. In fact, and the law Constitution was
Definitely.
signed there. The Liberty Bell. Nobody was
Hmm.
born when the Liberty Bell was formed. So, but going to the historic landmark, it's awesome to look at that and see the artifact right there. It's like, oh my gosh, look at this, the Liberty Bell.
Right.
9/11, the memorial site for me personally, it was yeah, it was different. It was like, man, like I'm happy to like see this here, but and I appreciate this being here, but at the same time, it really was saying like, man, we lost all of these people. And these
Yeah.
engravings were absolutely just, it almost hit home with me, really. And
Yeah.
because it was something that I witnessed in real time. And
Hmm.
I just still couldn't believe that it was, there's a lot of things that we all witness in real time, but that specific event, that incident that transpired, you can never forget it. And no matter
Yeah.
how hard you try, you just can't. So, but
Yeah.
like I said, man, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us,
Yeah.
Tim. And for those out there, please don't hesitate to share those with us. If you're joining us today on this live stream, I know it's a Bengals show, but we also wanted to pay tribute to remembering 9/11. So feel free to hop
Mhm.
in the comment section and then share with us your story and your thoughts. We'll put them out there on display if they're appropriate, of course. Because we got to follow the bylaws of you know content engagement and things like that. But
Yeah.
we do have some football to talk about.
Yeah.
Tim, let me just start off by talking to you about this. And I know a lot of our listeners, especially if you're listening to this, whether if it's during this live stream or you're going to be listening to the audio version later on, or just this YouTube channel later on.
Hmm.
You know that moment when you get into an argument with your significant other, and it's just you're just throwing haymakers back at each other. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're
Yeah.
saying one thing, your wife or your spouse or whatever saying another thing, and it's just like by the end of it, you just feel defeated.
Hmm.
And then you got to let it cook because yes, you cooked in the argument, but you really didn't get a chance to fully analyze everything that was said. You were just
Right.
listening to respond, not necessarily listening to, like active listening.
Hmm.
Then a few days later, or maybe a day later, because you don't want to have arguments drag on for days. That's just toxicity waiting to happen. And then you finally able to settle down and come and talk it out. And then to realize, okay, I was crazy for saying this, and I was crazy for saying that. Will you agree
Hmm.
that's usually the case that transpires, right, Tim?
Yeah. 100%. There's spouses and significant others. You guys get into arguments. It might be over something stupid. Might be something that is actually serious. And you
Yeah.
say stuff you don't mean, and you say stuff that you don't have the balls to say it when you're not mad. You know. So, but then you go back. My wife has a saying, never go to bed angry. And over the years I've kind of learned that. I've tried to, be a little bit humble and be like, you know what, you're right. And I know there's sometimes where I remember last year when we did this whole thing, because we're a year into running through the jungle, believe it or not. But I remember last year we would wait a couple days after the Bengals played to do the show because we were so
Because
mad. We were so just
yeah.
on fire.
And
And
even when we win, we didn't want to overreact to just this purebred excitement. But I think that
yeah,
we've tempered our expectations to where we can channel in our natural energy and get it out in front on camera and to
yeah.
talk to the audience for our Room Reaction show that to introduce that part of the Running Through the Jungle Network. But
Mhm.
I bring all that up to say this. We still got some things to discuss from week one before we go into the dive into the Kansas City matchup. There's just things I got to get off my chest.
Go for it, man.
And when we did the Raw Reactions episode immediately after the game, it was tough. It was tough because it's like I saw no upside whatsoever after watching that game. The Bengals, there was just no excuse for losing that game, and I will still stand 10 toes down and make that comment right there. But there was
Yep.
a lot of things that I say that I need to walk back, and I wouldn't care, not a lot of things. There was a couple of things that I said that I need to walk back because in the moment when emotions are high, logic is low. Okay.
Right.
The first thing that I stated, and I should not have stated this, was that I already projected, and I think we all three did it. I
Yeah, you did.
projected the spoiler alert of the Bengals are just going to lose week 2 because number one, they just don't when they play bad like that, you're in the zone. You don't think that they can bounce back. Well, the reality is they do kind of bounce back. The downside is that week 2, Zach Taylor has never won a game on week 2 in his tenure
Right.
as a head coach. He's 0-5. So
Mhm.
I mean, we'll get into all of that though. The other thing that I want to talk about, and it's a lot of the things that's going on in Bengal world. The 4th and 5 decision when the Bengals punted, it was about like what 6 minutes to go in the game, I believe, maybe just slightly under. It was in
Um,
between 5:30 to 6 minutes left to go in the game, if I'm remembering it correctly. But bottom line is the Bengals had all 3 of their timeouts, and they had a 2-minute warning. So basically 4 total timeouts. Okay.
oh yeah, that was with like there was like 3 minutes left in the game. It wasn't 5 or 6. There was like 3 minutes left in the game. It was 4th and 5, and we
Okay.
punted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But the Bengals had all 3 timeouts plus the 2-minute warning. I
Hmm.
state everybody and their mama stated that, well, the Bengals should have went for it on 4th down. But here's what I needed to check myself on because I said it too. I was angry that they punted instead of trusting in Joe to get the first down. The reality is Joe Burrow was not playing good that day either. Now he was somewhat efficient. He had a high completion percentage, I believe 72.3, whatever the case it was with the completion percentage. 21 of 29 for 164 yards. But every
Yeah.
pass that he threw, it seemed like it was either behind the line of scrimmage or just net total of 7 air yards
Yeah.
right then and there. It was just not a good, efficient Joe Burrow kind of day. And some may wonder, like, was his wrist fully 100% healthy like we thought it was? Because he was uncorking the passes in training camp. He was uncorking passes and deep balls in preseason. He was looking sharp, and he looked like he was just motivated and couldn't wait to get out there and prove naysayers wrong. Well, week 1 happened, and in the manner it did happen, I still blame the defense 100%, the run defense, but mainly, more importantly, Joe is not himself. There leads me to the punting decision. I know that Joe Burrow is my quarterback, and I know that you trust to get him to get the first down and continue, put the ball in his hands and go win the game. But the reality was, man, the Bengals are backed up so far in their end to the point where you can literally see the end zone. I think they were like on the smidge of their 20 or so. If you don't get it, and the Bengals have not shown you any promise of converting on 4th downs, they didn't convert on the 4th and 2 earlier that game. What makes you think they were going to get a 4th and 5 backed up deep in the red zone and the Patriots playing good defense all game long? What makes you think that that was going to happen right then and there at the moment? So the decision of the punting the ball was kind of now, I feel like in my mind, it was the right call now. Because even though the run defense was bad, Ramondre Stevenson, as I stated before on the reaction show, could have ran for like 200 yards the day he was
Oh,
having.
easily.
The defense,
Yeah.
the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed.
Mm-mm.
But it just seemed like that punting in that situation, you have to trust your defense, even though it's bad, because you got to play the field position. You have all of these timeouts. Because if you would have gotten it and you would have missed, you're already giving 3 points to New England. Even if you stop them 3 straight times, you're now down 2 scores. The score would have been 19-10 before you get the ball back. And it's asking a lot for an offense and a quarterback that really wasn't producing good football at all anyway. So you might as well play the field position game at that point. But I'm gonna take a quick pause to hear your thoughts about the punting situation and the punting decision. Let's say you, Tim.
I'm not going to take back what I said. They
I
should
knew
have
you
went
weren't gonna
for it.
take back what you said.
No, hell no, I'm not taking it back. I don't care if it's a week later or 2 months later. I'm not taking it back because in the end we still lost,
Right.
regardless of what the situation was. We still lost. It was 4th and 5. There was like 3 minutes. I want to say like 3 minutes left in the game or less. Who knows? I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was. I still would have went for it, regardless if Joe Burrow was playing the way he was, the way the offense was, the way the Patriots were playing, in defensive wise, when you go back and look at the tape of that play of that um, the third down play, Joe, I don't know what he was looking at. I don't know if he didn't see him, but Jamar
He just
Chase
was
had a
seeing
one
go
on.
there.
He was a one on one. He was one on one on I believe it was that third down play, and
Yeah.
Joe missed it. He, like we said, he was throwing him underneath the whole time. But I'll tell you this right now: if it's 4th and 5, we're down by 6 points. There's 3 minutes left in the game, and our defense, like I said on Sunday, and I'll say it again, the defense could not stop a fly. I watched the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson go for it on 4th down probably 3 or 4 times on Sunday because they were getting their butts whooped so bad by the Cowboys. I still would have went for it on 4th and 5, where we were, regardless, because in the end, it was poop or get off the pot. I was going to say the other word, but I don't want to be an FCC violation. So it was either
Crap or
poop or
get
get
off
off
the
the
pot.
pot.
Yeah, but right.
It was either we punt the ball, we hope and pray that our defense stops the fly, or we go for it on 4th down, we give them the ball in the red zone, we still lose the game. Or he gets the 4th down, or he gets the 1st down, and they continues to make this run. And I agree with you, and I do agree with you to a certain point that Joe Burrow was not himself. The offense was not himself. I feel like this Jamar Chase thing has been a distraction, regardless of what any of the NFL or any of the Bengals players say. I believe that it was a distraction. The defense. Let's go on to the defense. I'm sorry to say this, but the defensive wise, this Lou thing of all or nothing defense is not working for us. We're in the same. I feel like it's chapter 2 of last year's offense and defense right now. Oh, I'm sorry, chapter 2 of the Bengals defense is how I feel about it. Offensive wise, Joe Burrow, he doesn't play good on week 1. On week 2, I believe he has a 3-1 record on week 2s. I believe it's 3-1 or something like that. He's 3-1 in week 2. But I don't know. I don't know anymore. I just like. Are there too many distractions? Is it Zach's offensive schemes that he's calling?
Well,
Is it
we'll
Lou and
get
his
to that.
defense? I don't know.
We'll get to all of that here in a
Yeah,
second because that is a part of the residuals that you feel from this week 1 loss. Like you feel like that the
yeah.
gravity of this loss holds so much more weight. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just because it's one loss, but it just amounts to so much more pressure. We'll get to that in a second. Going back to the punting
Yeah.
situation, I feel like that the happy medium would have been you show like you're going to go for it on 4th and 5 since it's
Try to get him
literally
to jump.
5 more yards to try to draw
Yeah.
them off sides. They don't bite and you punt. I would have been okay with that. But the fact is, you ran off the field so quickly, and it's like you didn't even give your offense an opportunity to threaten
Right.
the
Right.
decision of going forward, because you would have gotten the look that you would have liked. And it's like, oh, I think I like this. They're disguising this guy. Man, I can do him with like. It just felt like that it was a rushed decision in the moment, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, I know that I don't want to waste time off the clock and whatnot. I think that I don't know if the clock stopped or anything like that. I think it was probably churning. You're probably it's so many factors that you got to make in that moment in game situation. But I'm just to the point like I understand now why you had to punt the ball because let's just keep it honest. We have seen situations in years past where the Bengals offense should have scored on this drive, and yet it looked like that we were going to have our defense save the day, and they came through. We
Mm-hmm.
have had that situation. And the
True.
trust and the belief of your captains on that side of the ball. It ain't like you ain't got Trey Hendrickson. It ain't like you ain't got what's his name? The linebackers, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt, Sam
Right.
Hubbard. It's as bad as you guys played all day. We believe in you in this moment that you can at least get the ball back for your offense for one final crack with like less than
Right.
a minute to go. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem was they just pooped the bed. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
But on to now the gravity of the concepts of what you just described. And then we're not going to spend too much time on this, even though we've spent a great deal of it. But it's the last nuggets of getting this all far back before we go into our conversations regarding week 2 and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's been too many distractions this offseason. It started with T. Higgins. Then for a stint period of the offseason, Trey Hendrickson popped up with his trade request. And then it went back to T. Higgins. And then it went to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase only was suffering this situation in like the last couple of weeks, but it feels like that it milked on for so much longer and it was
Yeah.
unnecessary. And it felt like that all of the things, the factors of the not getting anybody signed outside of Evan McPherson this offseason was a shame. It was a damn
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
because this should have been an offseason where everybody got extended. But it ended up being McPherson, who probably could have gotten more than what he signed for, let's just keep it honest, and nobody else signed. You saw what happened with Jesse Bates. You're seeing what happened with T. Higgins. And I know T. Higgins got the hamstring injury, and I know people are going to make their comments about that. I'm not doing that today, right now.
Right.
And then now you're seeing this situation unfold with Jamar Chase. It's really leaving a bad feeling in the locker room altogether. It's like outside of Joe Burrow. So basically, what you're telling us that if we're playing like we're high level top dollar and ask for top dollar, you're not going to really give it to us. Even though there have been conversations regarding Jamar and the Bengals front office that they've been willing to go so far and so deep. But whatever the particulars of the contract talks is, it is what it is. But it just felt like that the gravitas of all of that happening
Hmm.
truckloaded on them on week one, and they just could not play like themselves. And it just feels like that they got so many issues to work on football field and outside of the football field. And that's the fault that's the problem that I'm seeing. And you're right about Lou. We've said this on our reaction show, you and I both.
Yeah.
It's time to pan the camera at Lou Anarumo because it just feels like that he's not he's not taking enough responsibility for why his defense has been underperforming last
Hmm.
season and now it's the start of this season. And it's
Right.
not going to get any easier for him this week too. We're going to talk about that. But it is a frustrating moment. Let's say you.
I'm sorry. What did you say again? I missed it.
No,
You
I
cut
was
out.
asking for you. I know. I was basically asking you for your thoughts on basically the last tidbits that we were talking about, Lou Anarumo and
Yeah.
Jamar Chase's contract. You had mentioned you
Yeah.
had opened that up already.
Yeah. I did mention that. Lose in question for me. I think if he doesn't improve this year, you know, I know some people. I know I mentioned this before in some other. I think in the Twitterverse or on YouTube, whatever. Lose on the hot seat right now. I just the last 2 years have not been, or the last year and some change has not been the best for Lou and his defenses. Like I said, this whole, you know, all or nothing defense is just not working for us.
Mhm.
Like how much longer are they going to continuously allow this to happen? And I know I understand that people are good people and all that stuff, but this is a business.
Right.
It's you got to show results. It's not well, you're a nice guy and I like you. Hey Justin, I like you. You're a great guy. But if you can't get your job done, if you can't do your job, then why is Lou here? That's how I feel about it.
Basically,
And I go ahead.
no, I was about to say, just to echo your sentiment. Basically, if we're going to hold the players to an accountability standard that they need to play better or get off this field, then we need to
Right.
do the same thing regarding head coaches too, whether if it's position
Yeah.
coaches or the head coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't get the head coach off the field and fire him immediately after the game. We're not that, desperate. I
Right.
mean, regardless of what people think about Zach Taylor, he has been a solid head coach for the Bengals. You know what I
He
mean?
has.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget that he's led us to a lot of great wins, even
Mhm.
though he has more losses than wins on his NFL record so far, but
Yeah.
the makeup of his teams that he's constructed has been solid and has been good. And not to mention you got a franchise quarterback,
Yeah.
but no, I agree.
And I don't want to say, oh, get rid of Zach and get rid of Lou and everybody right now. I'm not saying that, but there's got to be some kind of attention to them.
Sure.
We have had winning seasons, for 21 and 22, and the 9-8 of 2023 last year. We've had 3 winning seasons, which is great for Bengals fan. It's great to
Hmm.
see. We went to the Super Bowl. Went to 2 AFC Championship games, won one of them. Then last year, it was unfortunate that Joe went down, but if there's got to be everybody's got to be held accountable, and I'm not going to just blame I'm not going to just blame coaches, but it has to go with coaching and it has to go with the players. If they're not
Right.
all on the same page and if they're not producing, then there's time to kind of like take a look at what's going on. You can't expect different results by doing the same thing. That's the definition of insanity. So you know
Yeah.
but yeah, no more. But I'm pretty much done with that.
Well, speaking of Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow, they both spoke today in their press conference. Let me ask you personally, and you can be completely honest as you want. Did you hear the press conferences today?
I did. I went back and I listened to them. Um, I'm tired of the press conferences, to be honest with you. It's just like, you're watching, you're sitting down in the classroom, um, you're Charlie Brown and the teacher's talking, wah, 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 wah. That's what I'm starting to hear when it comes to the Joe Burrow and the Zach Taylor's press conferences, excuse me. And it's more like, oh, we're taking it day by day, or let me watch the tape. You're not telling me anything that we want to hear as fans. We're fans. We're critics. And I know one thing that I um, did like what Joe Burrow was saying was, he appreciates the criticism and of week one from the reporters and everything because he missed 7 weeks of the season last year. That's one thing that I did get from Joe Burrow. But other than that, let's check the tapes or let's go day by day. That's all I'm here.
And that's get tiring. That's get really
It
tiresome.
does.
Now, we don't really have the coach and the quarterback combo to where either one of them is going to share a lot of information and break some news right off rip. If there's some news to share, they tend to operate tandemly hand to hand, even though they speak very differently. Let me just start with my notes from Zach Taylor, because there's a lot of it is just the coach speak is starting to become stale among the fan base. And sooner or later, if things don't operate and change differently overall from the top down, it's going to affect the locker room too. Like no matter what Zach Taylor says, it's not going to matter. This team has a lot of expectations, has lofty expectations this year of going into the Super Bowl. In fact, winning the Super Bowl. And you're coming off of a week one loss. We already talked about the residual effects where a game you shouldn't have won. Zach Taylor then stated that he expected us to get off to a faster start, like 21 to nothing, so to speak, as his quote stated. But nonetheless, you didn't. And it just felt like that he didn't have an answer from when the game plan changed throughout the day. And it was like at halftime, he was done making adjustments because it's like, oh well, they already dictated everything that they needed to do, and we were pretty much screwed from there. That's what I keep feeling when I hear that. I don't like
Yeah.
that because the thing that you got to do to become a great head coach in this league is you got to be great at game planning, strategy, and game planning. That's what you have to be great at. Situational football and understanding that at a high enough level, like is always what Bill Belichick says. There's going to be thousands and thousands of situations that could come up in the game. You may not know what they are, but when you do know them and you don't want to have to hear about it all the time, you just play them. You just know what to do and play them. You may not
Yeah.
have to experience it firsthand, but when it comes up, you absolutely, your instincts just kicks in. And I feel like those situational football and situational awareness when it comes to game planning doesn't kick in all the time for Zach Taylor. And it's one of the major reasons why we lost on Sunday, this past
Hmm.
Sunday.
Yeah.
So, and then another note that I took away from him is mentioning Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton should have gotten more snaps week one. I don't care about him being a rookie. I don't care about, hey, he needs to grow differently. But it was assuring to hear that, look, aside from Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, guys that we took high enough in the draft, Jamar, number 5 overall in the first round, T. Higgins, first pick of the second round, guys got to grow up. And you guys grow up naturally in this league. It's not going to happen overnight. I still
Right.
believe in Jermaine Burton's future, and I think he does too. But at the end of the day, he's not going to set this guy up for fail. And at the end of the day, he got to earn his opportunities as well too, and not just be
Yeah.
hand delivered to him. But I also watched a guy named Charlie Jones keeps getting constant opportunities, and yet he fumbled on Sunday, and yet you guys were still putting him out there. I also watched a guy named Tanner Hudson who carried the ball like a loaf of bread and gets punched out before scoring, and also drop another pass. And after that,
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, your message got to make sense and echo across the team.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me this, but yet you still doing that. And yet, don't tell me Jermaine Burton still has to earn his stripes a little bit more. Maybe this is with the players and whatever the case may be. But you still got guys like Tanner Hudson doing what he's doing. When he caught when Joe Burrow went to him a second time and he dropped that one pass, I was like, why is this dude still on the field? Like, why is Mike Gesicki not getting enough targets? He's not utilizing and maximizing his talents to the full extent. We just watched
Mm-hmm.
Joe Mixon have a career day with a career first day with the Houston Texans and winning Offensive Player of the Week, by the way. Which
Yeah.
shout out to Joe Mixon, man. I salute you and thank you so much for all the hard work that you put in the Cincinnati Bengals uniform. Go kill it in Houston. Don't slow down now. And now fans are upset because he came out and spoke like the Bengals left me there. They basically left me for dead. They did. And part of it is because Zach Taylor and the offense felt like that, and us fans too. We felt like that the offense can be revolutionized by if we insert this person and this certain person in this game and next game. But yet, look what happened week one. And we've seen this song and dance before. And that's what's frustrating to me regarding this implementation of this scheme and the strategy. And I need Zach Taylor to evolve a little bit more. I don't need to see predictability on offense. That's all I'm really just my direct quote and criticism to Zach Taylor directly is just that. And I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he got a lot of people in his ear telling him that.
Yeah.
But until he abides by those principles and understand evolution and growth, it's going to be the same thing, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's move on to Joe Burrow because you did say this.
Yeah.
You did say that Joe Burrow did share his appreciation for being criticized. I did take that away as well too.
Mm-hmm.
But a funny nugget. I'm sure you saw this on social media. Why is it there's so much attention for him picking up a water bottle?
I don't know. You come on, man. Everybody, the media, and all these people on Twitterverse and Facebook and all that crap. They analyze everything. Like I saw a post today that said, "Oh, Joe Burrow had a sweatband around his right wrist. Oh, and Jake Browning had a sweatband around his left wrist." Okay, and they just got nothing better to do. Nothing better to do.
It's so funny to me. But look, I get it because we're all nervous and we all just like, he just suffered an injury that we hope that he heals 100% from. He hasn't really came out
Mm-hmm.
and said 100% like I'm fully healed from my wrist. He hasn't said that. But at the end of the day, some things it's just too ridiculous. And I just loved his response. I just had to laugh at his response because he said, "Oh, what did I do? I picked it up weird." Oh, that's a new. I
Yeah,
didn't know. I just
right.
laughed because it's like, dude, you guys are paying attention to way too much stuff, and it's like, let me be me. Let me be a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So, but other than that, man, I think Joe Burrow, he's ready to play the Chiefs. I think that he's a man of very few words. He just likes his game tape to speak for itself, and he's confident in himself. I don't think that he wavers that at all. I didn't take anything away from when I heard him speak today, and it's always nice to hear him talk. I think the
Yeah.
fan base still get a collective sigh of relief when they hear that guy speak, more so than the head coach for some reason. But anyways, we've gone on about these topics long enough. Okay, before we go on break, because we got to talk about. No, okay, let me just kind of switch up a little bit. Sorry, we're going to take a quick break. And after we come back from break, it's time that we get into some Kansas City Chiefs talk because hey, it's Burrowhead, baby. Burrowhead reloaded. I don't like the term Burrowhead. Whatever.
No,
I'll get into all that. I'll get into all that here soon. But
cut.
we're gonna take a
Knock it
quick
off.
break. we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna do some deep dives and talking about week 2 because it is Burrow versus Mahomes, chapter 5 of this Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals showdown. We'll be right back. All right, all right, all right. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful live Wednesday edition of Burrow versus Mahomes Part 5 edition of Running Through the Jungle. Once again, to all of our people that is joining into the live stream or will listen later on whenever you get time, thank you. Just thank you. Please like and subscribe again to all those newcomers there. We appreciate all engagement, positive or negative. If you're too negative, we just gonna ignore you and boot you out of this space. But whatever the case it may be, we still appreciate you and thank you so much for listening to us. Tim and I, we're joined. You're joined by Tim and I today. Unfortunately, our boy Brandon, he is not able to make the show. He had some work issues pop up, so he had to take care of some business. But we here to hold it down. Ain't that right, Tim?
He's slacking. Come on, let's not give him that much credit. Let's bust him right here. He's slacking.
Hey,
having dinner and stuff while we're sitting there doing the show, and I'm waiting to eat dinner and whatever.
Yeah. I'm waiting to eat dinner too myself. I cooked up a nice little mean meal before jumping on the air today, just to make sure that we had some food prepared, and I didn't even get a chance to eat any of it. So now I gotta warm it up in the microwave.
Amen.
That's my night of what it's going to consist of food wise. But nonetheless, oh man, it's a big week too, man. It's a big battle. So here we are. It's Burrow is versus Mahomes, Chapter 5. That's the episode's title. All right, man. It's time to move on to Kansas City, bro. We got a lot to happen. We got a lot that's going on here. But let me just say this. When you think of the top rivalries in the AFC, obviously Patrick Mahomes is the number one pillar of part 1 out of 2. The other one is Burrow. Mm-hmm. But there's other rivalries among Patrick Mahomes as well, too. It's almost like it's Patrick Mahomes, then insert next person. And then it's just like a spinny wheel of who's the next person. Then spin the clock, and then who's the next quarterback. And right now, it feels like that we've narrowed it down to probably 3 guys. It's Patrick Mahomes going against Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Patrick Mahomes going against Lamar Jackson, who he saw week 1.
Yeah.
And then there's Patrick Mahomes going against Joe Burrow. All coincidentally, in my opinion and the opinion of many others, those are the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL currently as where it stands today. Now, no matter what you got to say about week 1, Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, bar none. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to go into this matchup bringing up Joe Burrow's 3-1 record against Patrick Mahomes. That does not factor here because timing is everything and about who you play them and when you play them. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into our predictions when it comes to the score and game ball and all that stuff. But I think that it is prominent to bring this up now that this is the first time that we've seen these 2 teams face off this early in the season. Mm-hmm. Things are still brand new. But what I saw from Kansas City on Thursday Night Football when they opened their banner, when they dropped the banner on banner night, I saw a team that was very dynamic. And they didn't really show all of the things that they were willing to do. I think that they understand that it's a marathon and not a sprint, especially coming off of last year where they lost on banner night. And they lost 6 games, and plenty of those games were just like, this is the Chiefs that you guys are fearful of or whatever. These are the so-called, and they still won the Super Bowl despite leading the league in drops with their receivers. Patrick Mahomes didn't have an MVP caliber season last year, but he was the guy that kept the team afloat. Travis Kelce wasn't himself until he got into the postseason. Chris Jones had a contract this situation where he sat out a game, week 1. Yeah. They quickly resolved it the very next day after that loss to Detroit, week 1. And then it was all systems go from there. And everybody thought that Chris Jones was going to be out after they won the Super Bowl. What did they do? They extended him. Mm-hmm. So it's good organizations make great moves. And it's one of the things that we talked about in our residual effects from week 1 is that the gravity of everything that transpired during this offseason for the Bengals, it's almost like you don't really see that in Kansas City. Like you see the contract dispute, like you see the business side takes a factor and takes a toll everywhere across the league. But it just seems like great organizations like Kansas City can overcome that. And it's by virtue because they got the guy at quarterback, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Tim, what are your early feelings and the indication of the Kansas City Chiefs in general as a team?
Kansas City's Kansas City. They've been playing great ball for, ever since Patrick Mahomes took over the helm, and, he's won 3 Super Bowls, in 4 years. Yeah.
4 Super Bowls
Yeah.
too.
Oh, it was. Has it been four? Oh man, I'm losing my
I mean,
mind.
he
Yeah.
won 3 you're right, he
He,
won 3 Super Bowls, but he's been to 4 total. He lost against
yeah.
Tampa Bay.
That's right. He lost against Tampa Bay. Yeah, but he's been to four. He's won three of them. Two of them back to back. They're trying to get a three-peat going on. And Patrick Mahomes, he's a great quarterback. He's smart with the ball. He's just he's one of the greats. He's going to be. I think later on in our years, when I'm 60, 70 years old, I'm gonna be like, we'll be talking about Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes as the GOAT, and of course me, Joe Montana, and Troy Aikman, and all that. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, and Kansas City's lucky to have him. And what they've done with those contracts with him and re-signing Chris Jones is the brilliant idea, because I would have loved to see Chris Jones in Cincinnati, but that would never
We
happen.
trust me, we all would've.
Yeah, but Chris Jones is a hell of a defensive tackle. Kansas City has done, man, they've done such a good job, not with just the offensive piece, but the defensive side. They have actually, last year, that defense played hell of football and kept them in those games, even when they were dropping passes and all that stuff. Yeah, they lost 6 games last year, but still made it all the way to the Super Bowl, beat the MVP, in the AFC Championship game for them to go on to the Super Bowl, and then handle business against the 49ers, who've been to the Super Bowl so many dang times in the last 10, 20 years, and they lost again. So Patrick Mahomes, even though he's a Kansas City Chief, I still like the guy. He's a great ball player. Travis Kelsey's going to be a future Hall of Famer. Chris Jones is going to be a future Hall of Famer. eh, you know but I'm hoping that we can do some stuff on Sunday.
For sure, and you know what? I think what impresses me more about their team and their organization is that, from the days when Patrick Mahomes just took over the league, like they being the young phenom in 2018, throwing for 5,000, over 5,000 yards and 50 touchdown passes,
Yeah.
going to the AFC Championship game his first year as a full-time starter,
Hmm.
and to where he is now. Roster turnover happens like crazy. It's so crazy. Like when you see the old film from the AFC Championship game when they played against the Patriots at home, they lost that game, obviously, to now the
Hmm.
turnover is so crazy. It's like, dang, I ain't know that dude ain't even playing on the team. It's just that's how the league works. You guys leave, guys move on. Contracts can't always be signed everywhere, and the Bengals are going to be learning that the hard way. And we're experiencing the contract situation, and that longevity doesn't happen for every single player, no matter how bad you want it to be. But what's very
Hmm.
impressive is that they've identified who their core players was, and they stuck with those guys. And I
Yeah.
think the Bengals can learn a lot from that, especially with their core guys. Keep them intact and then keep investing in those guys. You got to make tough decisions, and they had to make tough decisions. They lost L'Jarius Sneed throughout this offseason, who played like a Pro Bowler,
Yeah.
and he's gone now to Tennessee. They got Trent McDuffie in there, and they got a guy that's I don't even know who he is for real like that anymore. Their secondary, they do have Brian Cook as far as like one of the safeties that they lost mid-season, season-ending injury. Brian Cook from the Cincinnati product, he's back there playing safety, and they lost Mike Edwards, but they still got Justin Reed. And Justin Reed was a Houston Texan a few years ago. He was a free agent acquisition. So it's things that they've understood, the understanding of investing into the draft, developing developing your guys through the draft, but the free agent pool, you take opportunities where you can. Drew
Yeah.
Tranquil to me was a perfect free agent that would have been a perfect free agent acquisition for the Bengals. He's a guy that I wanted because I thought he was one of those underrated great players for the Chargers on their defense that just wasn't used properly. And if
Yeah.
when he became a free agent, I thought, I think the Chargers are going to sign him back because he's just that good of a player. And then the Bengals had an opportunity to sign him, but they didn't even look at linebackers for real. But
Mm-mm.
Kansas City saw, they knew exactly because they play against him twice a year. And he's just a perfect fit for what they're doing at linebacker. So much so that they allowed Willie Gay Jr. to go to New Orleans in free agency. And it's almost like their linebacking position didn't lose a beat. And that's what I think that's so impressive to me is that how they're able to identify guys, their whole organization can identify guys and talent and to just add the pieces in and bring in the opportunity when it sees fit. And then it can
Mhm.
just it meshes with it and go with it. Mahomes doesn't have to necessarily win games by creating all these fancy plays all the time. I know he did a behind the back pass in preseason. Who
Mhm.
I'm not impressed. Like that. I don't like that. But at the end of the day, he can do it. He knows he can. He can win games by his arm, but he's mature to that and ascended to that level of his game to where, dude, if he got to run the ball 20 times or 20 to 30 times today, he don't mind doing it. And then
Right.
he'll make the most of his passing opportunities when he does. He's showing you that week one in Baltimore. He didn't outside of the gameplay, the big time throw to Xavier Worthy down the sideline. Were there really any big throws that he made in that week one game against Baltimore? I mean, am I crazy or did I not see that very much?
Not that I recall. I think they were mostly bust loose plays and that
Yeah,
reverse from to Worthy and that pass to Worthy.
right.
That was pretty much about it. Kelsey, I don't even think Travis Kelsey had very many receptions against the Ravens either. But the Kansas City did play really good ball, and they won the game.
That's all it took. It's they understand that it's a marathon and not a sprint. But
Yeah.
moving on to I want to just to describe to you guys in the field of marketing, whether if you're in marketing one-on-one classes or you're just in a marketing field general in general. Um, they like to conduct a thesis called a SWOT analysis. So what we're going to do on this show is conduct a SWOT analysis. We're going to talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, the SWOTs. So so when we introduce the strength segment that's getting ready to come up here, Tim and I will both list off what we individually both think is a strength, and we'll
Hmm.
bounce back and forth, and then we'll just keep going down a pecking order. But that is the identifying factor as we go through our analysis when it comes to this week two matchup against Kansas City. So Tim, let's start first with our strengths here. I'm gonna lead off with you. Give me a strength that the Bengals have that's advantage their side.
If T Higgins is healthy, I believe that our biggest strength is a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Jamar Chase and T Higgins. That passing game could open up doors for us against Kansas City. But as of right now, we don't know what's going on with T Higgins. He's got that hamstring soft tissue issue again. So, if T Higgins is on the field with Jamar Chase, and it being week two, a little bit more preparing and more practice for Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and the rest of the offense, I believe that's one of our biggest strengths that we have. Um, that's
Okay.
that's like one of my biggest strengths is for the Cincinnati Bengals.
So the wide receiver core in general is still virtual strength. I would agree to. Now I
Yeah.
understand Kansas City has new weaponry with Xavier Worthy. We've already mentioned Rasheed Rice has come on, in the
Hmm.
second year. Last year was his rookie year, but he's found himself a nice role in his second season. Kadarius Toney is not with the team, and actually he signed a deal with the Cleveland Browns. They did
Right.
bring back Juju Smith-Schuster, but he is obviously just doesn't feel like that he can be as impactful. He wasn't impactful last week. And obviously, you got to include their tight end room when it comes to the Chiefs. But I tend to
Yeah.
still think advantage Bengals as a strength, with the come to the receiving core and the weaponry core overall. Despite of what I think about Tanner Hudson and him fumbling the ball like that, I still think I like the overall depth of tight ends with the Bengals more than the Chiefs a little bit. I could be
Mhm.
clearly wrong on that because we're going to get to it. Noah Gray, he's somebody that you got to watch out for. But
Yeah.
Travis Kelsey is playing like he's Travis Kelsey in name only. But the Bengals are just not historically good at tight end. So here's what we're going to
Mhm.
do now. I think it's a perfect segue because I think that all the other strengths, the Bengals have a great team, a great roster build. Again, take away what we will out of week one, they still have a great roster build. But when we're aligning the strengths and weaknesses, there's not a lot of strengths that is advantage Bengals. Some of them are about equal, but others are about advantage Chiefs. So now I think this is the segment we're gonna just flow right into. I'll start this one off here for weaknesses. I mean, I'm not gonna. I want to say the whole overall defense, but I'm gonna be a little bit more specific. the defensive line is a weakness for the Bengals, clearly.
Yeah.
Kansas City has an absolute stud monster in their interior lineman group, led by Creed Humphrey at center. They still got Joe Tooney running things, and then they got Trey Smith. That is
Mhm.
their strength on their offensive line. Their tackles are new with Kingsley Asumuatio. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name, but he's a rookie out of BYU. And
Yeah.
then you got Jawan Taylor, who just seems like he can't stop getting false starts for some reason. It's almost like Donovan Smith last year reloaded and just insert Jawan Taylor on the right side. Um, I don't think that their tackles are as strong, but I think that their rookie left tackle is going to get better as the year probably progresses. But their strength is
Mhm.
clearly their interior, and the Bengals just do not have a great defensive line interior, more specifically. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna start off that that is a weakness for me personally.
Mhm.
Now you,
And I agree with, and I actually agree with you on the run defense. Our defensive line is not the best as we've seen in week one. But I'm going to add another weakness in there. I'm going to say our weakness also is our run game.
hmm
Um, you know, as we've seen on Sunday, we ran the ball. I think it was 12 whole times. Um, Even though Zach Moss did pretty, he had 9 rushes for 48 yards, whatever the heck it was. Was it 4.8 yards a carry or whatever, 4.9 or whatever it was. Um,
yeah,
it,
he had a
but
good average.
Yeah, but if the Bengals can come out there with 12 personnel on Sunday against the Chiefs, with Eric All and Tanner Hudson out there blocking, we could have a positive. That weakness could turn into a positive, but that weakness is going to go with Zach Taylor's play calling.
Well, I'm going to identify another weakness to me here too, and that's the coaching staff. The coaching staff is a weakness until they turned it into a strength.
Yeah,
And say what you will about Lou Anarumo is usually game plan is good against Patrick Mahomes and their offense. This is a different Chiefs offense this time around.
yeah,
Mahomes, as I already stated in the opener, Mahomes has matured to the point where it's like he don't have to uncork it deep. He ain't afraid to. We know that. But I think that he spooks a lot of teams for you to adjust to him more so than he adjusts to you. Lou Anarumo was the one defensive coach that he has struggles with. I don't feel that way this time around. And that's the problem for me. Zach Taylor, when it comes to situational gameplay and game football, I just don't feel like that, even though he's had, the advantage head to head against Andy Reid, but at the end of the day, it's still Andy Reid, and he's gotten better as a head coach too because of who he instills his trust and belief in at
right.
quarterback. It's not saying that Zach Taylor doesn't believe Joe Burrow any less. He believes him as about the same, or if not even more. But I think it's sometimes it goes to his own detriment because he don't realize that he doesn't have the exact same strengths in other places like Andy Reid does in other places. So that to me is a weakness.
Yeah.
Do you have any more weakness before we go to opportunities?
No, I think we covered them all.
Yeah, we again we've designed this segment to be able to just a bullet point each one because the next one is opportunities. Now you already pseudo mentioned it already. The
Yeah.
opportunity that you have in front here, if you're the Bengals, there's probably a couple, but the number one is that you have a chance to take the game plan that New England did to beat you, and you can do that to Kansas City. That's the
Yeah.
number one opportunity that you have. But here's the caveat here. You have to run the ball effectively.
Hmm.
Zach Moss and Chase Brown have shown you that they can run the ball effectively. That offensive line is not as weak as what it used to be. You should be able to run the ball on their defensive line, even though Chris Jones is sitting right there on that defensive line.
Right.
But and you have a quarterback that you look at that can stand on the eye level with their quarterback. And
Hmm.
when he's 100% healthy, in my opinion, he can outplay Mahomes even when he's playing at his best. He's the one of the only ones that can do that. Okay. We always talk about the 3-1 record, a lot of us as Bengals fans. I like to run the damn ball reference, but I was let you coin that phrase here.
I
We
will.
always talk about the 3-1 record that Joe Burrow has over Patrick Mahomes head to head. We get that. But in
Hmm.
large part of it is because when you look at the 3 wins, the Bengals beat Kansas City when Mahomes was really playing at some of his best football. The
Yeah.
first matchup, they were cooking us. And then then Burrow outperformed him, and even on his better days. And then in the AFC Championship game that same season in 21, it was the exact same concept. Mahomes was cooking us. 3 straight
Mm-hmm.
touchdowns, storming lead. Yeah, he melted down in the second half a little bit, but or you can just pay tribute to Joe Burrow actually just outplayed him. He did. And then the third win, when they went 3-0, my goodness, I felt like that nobody was stopping Joe Burrow that day. And
Right.
Mahomes was down 14-3 there, and he came back and took the lead, but it just always felt Burrow was in control the whole entire time. And that's where you got to instill that belief in. And that's the opportunity that you have there. But if Joe ain't 100%, you got to pivot your game plan a little bit, because what you got to do now is keep away from that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he knows that you're going to game plan that. And what the Chiefs have done successfully that the Bengals have not was adjust to adjustments against them.
Mm-hmm.
So they already know people are going to strategize game plans to take the ball out of Mahomes' hand and have limited possessions. That's why they're able to run the ball effectively. You got to be able to flip the script on them to realize that, hey, you can adjust to this. So that's my one opportunity I have. Do you have an opportunity, Tim?
I'm gonna, like I said, for our, our weakness, but it is an opportunity. It also is an opportunity. We've seen it was proof in the pudding when we came out in 12 personnel and we're running the damn ball, just like Dennis said in the chat. That's exactly what we
Put
have
that
to
up there.
do.
We're gonna put that up there again because I like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Run the damn ball. That's exactly what we need to do. We're going to see this against us all year long. At least 6 times we're going to see it against the Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Cleveland Browns, especially when Chubb returns for the Browns.
Right.
Running the ball, like I've said before, if you take the opportunity and the effectiveness and the consistency of running the ball, it's going to open up the pass game. On that one drive that we scored that touchdown with Moss, we came out
Mhm.
there in 12 personnel. We were running the ball, but then after that, it was too late for us to continuously run the ball because we were playing from behind now, even
Right.
more. So
Right.
I think this opportunity is, you know, I know it was only week 1, but this is week 2. Zach Taylor has got to have somewhere in his cards, in his index cards somewhere, that running the damn ball is successful for us to
Mhm.
open up the pass game. If Joe Burrow's not comfortable with what's going on, we got to have another option besides him dropping back and throwing it underneath or getting sacked or whatever situation is. But also,
Right.
when I say running 12 personnel, it's also going to help us deal with Chris Jones because Chris Jones is going to be flopping all over the place. We have a 12
Sure.
personnel. We have a tight end out there chipping him or something, or helping with the blocking on that side of whatever side he's on. It's going to
Good
open up
call.
that opportunity to keep him at home instead of having him bull rush Joe Burrow. We've seen Chris Jones do it to the Cincinnati Bengals. He has sacked. He loves to sack Joe Burrow. So if we bring the 12 personnel with not just running the ball, but also helping Joe Burrow in the offense, keep Chris Jones at bay.
And I think that, and to add a little bit more to it, because I think it's a perfect segue into our threats segment here with the SWOT analysis. But the other opportunity is, in order to do that, you can start doing more plays under center. This is why we've called for
Mm-hmm.
plays under center, because it's like when you're always in shotgun, you're easily identifiable and you're easily readable. And I
Right.
think that the problem with the Bengals offense, and a lot of offense are just pivoted, just taking shots out of the gun. You don't hold protections as long as you think you do. But when you're under center and you give the threat of the run and you lead with that a little bit more than just always being in shotgun, guess what? You have a little bit more of a balanced threat to where nobody can predict of what you're going to do. People
Yep.
know that when you're under center, you're just trying to pitch a hard count or you're just trying to run it. You're not really threading the pass, even though there were a few times where Burrow did drop back to pass and when he was under shotgun, that was cool, but it
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't consistent and they weren't even completed passes. Um, but segueing that Chris Jones thought that threat that he is into the actual category of threats. I want you to continue the discussion regarding Chris Jones because he is the obvious threat that
Yeah.
that can absolutely blow up a game plan at any given moment.
Yeah, we were going over this SWOT because I wasn't really familiar with the SWOT theory here. But I said, my threat was Chris Jones. Chris Jones is going to be moving. He's going to be on the left. He's going to be on the right. He's going to be playing defensive tackle. That Chris Jones is a huge threat for us. He always
Mhm.
is. He always, I wish I had the stats to look up how many times he's sacked Burrow in Burrow's career, but we
Like
got to
3.
keep, huh? 3 times?
I think 3 times, yeah.
Maybe, yeah, 3 times, or even
Around that
quarterback
time, but
pressures. Even if it wasn't sacks, quarterback pressures, um, tackles for losses on wide receivers or running backs. Chris Jones is a threat. There's a reason why they re-signed Chris Jones and didn't let him go nowhere, because the Cincinnati Bank, or excuse me, not Cincinnati, because the Kansas City Chiefs know that Chris Jones is a threat. Chris Jones is like today's Aaron Donald. I won't say he is Aaron Donald, but he's pretty dang close. He's right on Aaron Donald's heels. Like I said before, I'm not gonna keep going on because you guys already know. For my threat for the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday is Chris Jones.
well, Chris Jones is, I mean, it's not like that Aaron Donald retired 7 years ago. He just
Right.
retired this past offseason. So
Hmm.
he was just in the league. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I still thought that there were times where I thought Chris Jones was better than Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Let's just be keeping it honest. When you mention just ferocious defensive linemen, you obviously think Miles Garrett and TJ Watt. You think of Miles Crosby. We think of edge rushers more than anything, but very
Hmm.
seldomly do we think of defensive tackles first, which Chris Jones is that. He's a
Right.
defensive tackle. He's a D lineman that can rush from any point on the line. And that's what makes him the biggest threat. For me personally, I'm going to go with the threat of Xavier Worthy. He's got speed. This is not John Ross 2.0, even though he did. And I'm glad, honestly, that Xavier Worthy broke John Ross's 2.422 speed or combine record, just because, as disappointing as John Ross in his career, I didn't like him having that record. But people thought that, oh, they didn't put that much stock into the 40 times since then. And they thought that when he broke that combine record, that he's going to probably turn into another John Ross, just a speed guy. Well, Kansas City is actually using them in really good identifying ways. They did the
Hmm.
swing route, the wheel route, not even wheel route. The what's it called? The reverse run that they did
Yeah.
against Baltimore for a touchdown, and it was just like I saw right there first time. Wow, this dude is really really fast. Like, come on,
Hmm.
like dude got it. And then the broken coverage that he did, he didn't even get touched when he just ran behind Marlon Humphreys for the touchdown.
Oh, smoked him.
It just cooked him. Like now, be fair on the Ravens, they don't allow big plays like that happen often on that secondary. They're
Right.
really good, but it just goes to show you that Mahomes wasn't really looking that way to throw to was
Hmm.
everywhere. He just he's open, boop, throw touchdown.
Yeah.
That's what you fear that it can happen to the Bengals secondary, especially when you got guys like Dax Hill covering him. Because
Hmm.
let's just keep it honest here. Cam Taylor Britt is not going to be one on one with that guy all the time. He's
No.
not going to do that. He's going to probably be more on Rasheed Rice, if anything, because Rasheed Rice is coming into his own. And their weaponry still consists of having, oh, yeah, that's right, Travis Kelsey. That's another threat. The Bengals just still haven't found an answer to covering tight ends. And no matter how much you want to bring up Travis Kelsey's age, they got him and Noah Gray,
Hmm.
that tight end tandem, and you can see that Noah Gray is going to be the future, the next guy, and they're
Yeah.
probably already feeding him. So it really brings really big level threats to the Kansas City Chiefs offense brings to the Bengals defense.
Yeah.
So those that kind of wraps up my threats. Do you have any additional threats that you want to
Well,
point out?
is Hollywood Brown returning on week 2? Because Hollywood Brown is playing for the
Hmm.
Kansas City
That is a
Chiefs
good
as well,
question. That is a
and
good question.
and they also have that kid Watson.
Justin
Uh,
Watson.
yeah, Watson as well on the Chiefs too. So, and they were using Gray and Kelsey and Watson excellent against the
Yeah.
Chiefs or
They
against
got
the
a
Ravens.
collection.
Excuse me.
They
They
got a
got a
collection of
good
guys
collection.
that
Yeah.
that can do some damage if any one of them get off on any given moment. Again, I still take the Bengals receiving core, for better or for worse. I still take the
Yeah.
Bengals receiving core to be the absolute strength that they have over the Kansas City Chiefs. But
Hmm.
Kansas City's defense, they've played Jamar Chase before, and Steve Spagnuolo knows how to game plan for that guy at this point. It's almost like
Right.
a division opponent. So that's not going to be anything new for them. The Bengals just got
Hmm.
to be able to adjust to the adjustment there. So, I
Right.
mean, but anyways, that was our SWOT analysis, and that was a fun one because it gives you the opportunity to kind of break down each segment of how you truly feel about this game. But now, the last part of our show, and should be the fun part of our show, but let's go into it, man. We got some predictions, and before we give our predictions, I'll just give this opening statement that for me, look, it's the right team, but we're going against them at the wrong time. I just feel like that week one loss just does so much more wonders than we realize. And I think that the Bengals they've identified that they got a lot of things to figure out outside of just the football field. Whatever the cases go with the contract, the players and stuff, it's just they got issues. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And the issues that they shouldn't have been experiencing that was absolutely controllable all throughout the offseason, they've let it fester and linger into the season. And that's a problem because this Chiefs team doesn't have any of that. In fact, we saw footage and videos of Travis Kelsey with Taylor Swift and Patrick Mahomes just enjoying out the US Open, just living their best life and stuff with no worries like, oh, we got the Bengals on deck. We got to practice. They ain't worried about that. They ain't got no worries. They operate like, man, I've done my job. I've got my 3 championships, and we ain't playing this season for week 2. That's what they looking like. And the Bengals, they're still trying to figure out, is Burrow okay? Can we call good plays for him? For him to feel comfortable and confident in his wrist.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't add up well for me for a successful team. And no matter who you would have put into this spot after what I saw after week one, it could have easily been like let's say, the LA Chargers. I'll be talking this talk right now that it's the right opponent because I do believe that if there's anybody that matches up well with Kansas City and they know it, it's the Cincinnati Bengals. But timing matters of when you play these teams. And for
Yeah.
me, I just don't feel like that the Bengals are ready to kind of come into full of the regular season like I thought that they were. So I'm predicting a loss, unfortunately. I am going to predict the Bengals to cover this spread because it's a 6 point spread. But I will predict the Bengals to cover the spread. And I think it'll be a better game than what people thinks. I don't think that they're going to just roll over and then just bow down to Kansas City. Austin Azar said that he thinks that it's going to be 17-6. You know what? I'm not going to put it past you. I think that probably could be the score. I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic and think 28-21. I'm sorry, no, 28-24. That's the Chiefs beating the Bengals. It could be 27-24 again, and it'll be another 3 point game like it was the last 3 times that Burrow and Mahomes, I'm sorry, last 4 times that Burrow and Mahomes faced off against each other. So that's what I'm going to go with 27-24. And we'll get into game ball predictions, but first and foremost, I want to hear your score prediction, Tim, first.
I already said, we said, I know I was angry when I said it, but I'm still going to stick with it. I think the Kansas City Chiefs have our number this week, and they handle business. I hope I'm wrong. I really am. I hope I'm wrong. But as Brandon likes to say, hope is not a
Hope is
strategy.
not a strategy.
But I'm going to say Kansas City Chiefs 20, 28-21. I'm going to say 28-21. They cover
Okay,
the
so you are
spread.
okay. They covered the
Yeah,
spread. Yeah,
they cover the
got you.
spread. They win 28-21 Kansas City.
Okay, got you. All right. Off in this situation when if the Bengals do win, there is still offense and defensive game balls that we still like to predict and give out. And actually, we kind of do it even when they lose too. We did it last year. We didn't do it last week just because we were just so mad. But
Yeah.
offensive and defensive game balls. From my offensive side of the ball, I picked them last week and I'm going to pick them again this week. I am going to go Joe Burrow. I think that Joe Burrow shuts up some naysayers regarding his wrist and thinking that he's just spooked out there a little bit. He's not phased by the Chiefs, and I think that he's
Mhm.
going to be out there to show that hey, I can beat these guys, and you guys keep forgetting that. So he's my offensive game ball. For defense, this is tough, man, because I'm not high on this defense whatsoever. But if I am going to pick a defensive game ball recipient, for me, it's going to be Logan Wilson. He was the one guy in the linebacker position that got a consistent amount of pressure. He was all over the field. He knocked
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett on his back, even though he still got the ball, got rid of the ball. Logan Wilson was just right there,
Mhm.
directly at him. So I'm going to pick him as my recipient for game ball on the defensive side.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with my offensive game ball. And the only reason why I'm going this way is because of last week's game the Chiefs and the Ravens had. they had a tight end, Isaiah Likely, had 100+ yards receiving against them.
Mhm.
I know they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, but I'm going to go with the tight end. The tight end. I'm not going to pick a tight end. Well, you know what? I'll pick a tight end. I'll say
You got to pick a tight
Gasecki's
end,
going.
bro. Yeah,
I'll
get
say
Kaseki
I'll
that.
say
Yeah.
Gasecki. I say Gasecki's going to be my offensive game ball. I think they kind of Kansas City kind of showed a weakness when it comes to tight ends. On against the Ravens.
I
I
agree.
know
I agree.
Isaiah. I know Isaiah and Gasecki. They're not the same player, but Gasecki, he can play
He's
ball.
touchable.
We've seen him.
Hell
We've seen
yeah.
him play some ball. So I'm gonna say Mike Gasecki's the game ball for the offense. For the defense, I was actually thinking I'm gonna agree with you. I'm not gonna drag this on any longer. I'm sure you guys are tired of seeing my face. But I agree with you. Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson's was all over the field last week. I think it's going to be a repeat this week. Hopefully Trey Hendrickson can get in there and get some pressures and maybe a sack. But I'm going to say Logan Wilson as well for the defense.
Awesome, awesome. And there you have it, folks. That is Tim and I. We spent a lot of good time, on this episode. There's the breakdown of the Kansas City Chiefs matchup, and look, the Bengals have an opportunity to make us feel completely different after what transpired this past Sunday on week one. You
Mm-hmm.
go out there and handle business against that team who's looking to three-peat. And I understand what I stated about they ain't looking to win week two as far as like their whole season goes for the Chiefs standpoint, but they do respect Cincinnati and they know it. And at the end of the day, the Bengals are still the one team that still has his number. And if you handle business, man, things can look upward. And it'll get to the point where it's like, okay, now the ball's rolling. You got the Washington Commanders coming in on Monday night. You got the
Mm-hmm.
Carolina Panthers on the road, and all of a sudden now you're 3-1, just like we all predicted how the first four games were starting off. And that we'll still won't forget about the ugly Patriots loss, but we'll move on. We'll move on quickly, and then think that all right, all of our goals are still out in front of us. So if
Yeah.
you handle business, but that's a lot of hoping and that's a lot of ifs going on with the team, in my opinion, with a lot of questions with our squad. So we have to handle business, man. So until next time, thank you so much, you all, for joining us on this wonderful edition of running through the jungle. Why am I saying running through the jungle? Thank you guys for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure to guys have you on this live stream. Tim, it's great. Thank you so much for sharing your 9/11 story. Honoring you of what you've dealt with as far as like in the military. Wanted to bring notice to that. And for all the fans and listeners at home, enjoy the game Sunday. We'll be back for our Raw Reactions episode. We are still going to talk about win, lose, or draw. We are still going to be here. We're going to be sulking in our sorrows if our score predictions do hold up and we lose the game. But we're going to be jubilant and excited if we win. So,
Yeah.
but until next time, as we run through the jungle.